The red dust of Geonosis swirled through the arena like blood and water. Lightsabers hummed their deadly song as Jedi Knights fell one by one to the relentless assault of battle droids. In the center of this maelstrom stood Anakin Skywalker, his blue blade carving perfect arcs through the air. Each movement calculated, precise, devoid of the passion that should have driven a young man watching his comrades fall. Beside him, Padmé Amidala fired her blaster with practiced efficiency. When a Geonosian warrior lunged at her from behind, Anakin's lightsaber found its mark without hesitation. He pulled her to safety, but where another man's hand might have lingered, his released immediately, returning to his weapon. "Thank you." "Stay behind me, Senator. The Republic needs you alive." And in that moment, in the heat of battle where love should have bloomed, there was only duty, only purpose, only the cold calculation of a man who learned too young that attachment was the path to pain. 10 years had passed since that day on Naboo when young Anakin Skywalker first met the Queen. 10 years since Qui-Gon Jinn's dying words echoed through the plasma generator room. But unlike the story you might know, this Anakin had taken a different lesson from his master's death. Where others saw tragedy, he saw truth. Emotion was weakness, attachment led to loss, and the only constant in the galaxy was the Force itself. The boy who had left Tatooine possessed all the power of the Chosen One, but his mother's tears had carved something out of him. "Don't look back. Promise me, Annie, don't look back." And he never did. Not once. Not even in his dreams. Under Obi-Wan's tutelage, Anakin had become the Jedi Order's greatest success story. Masters would whisper in the temple halls about the Skywalker boy who meditated for hours without stirring, who could disassemble and reconstruct a hyperdrive with the same emotionless precision he brought to lightsaber combat. Where the Council had feared his emotions, they found instead a void, and they called it balance. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you're enjoying this content so far, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch these videos without subscribing. Imagine what we could accomplish if everyone subscribed. We thank you all for your continued support. Months after Geonosis, in the temple's highest spire, Master and Apprentice stood overlooking Coruscant's endless skyline. "Your thoughts betray you." "My thoughts are clear, Master. The Separatists threaten peace. We stop them. The equation is simple." "War is never simple, Anakin." "Isn't it? They attack. We defend. They kill. We prevent. Every battle has optimal solutions. Every strategy has maximum efficiency. The only variable is whether the Jedi Council has the will to implement them." Obi-Wan felt a chill that had nothing to do with the altitude. This wasn't the hot-headed boy he'd promised to train. This was something else. Something that solved problems like a droid, but wielded power like a god. The Clone Wars raged on, and with each battle, Anakin's legend grew. Not as the hero with no fear. Fear required emotion, but as the perfect general. His clone troopers would follow him anywhere, not out of love, but from absolute confidence in his tactical brilliance. It was during the siege of Felucia when Ahsoka Tano was assigned as his Padawan. The Council hoped that teaching might awaken something in him, some spark of the humanity they increasingly failed to find. "Master Skywalker, I'm honored to be your Padawan. I've heard so much about you." "Hearing and knowing are different things, Ahsoka. You'll find I'm not what anyone expects. I'll teach you to survive this war. I'll teach you to win. But if you're looking for comfort, reassurance, or anything beyond competence, find another master." I understand, Master." "No, you don't. But you will." Over months of campaigns, Ahsoka learned from the most brilliant military mind of their generation. She watched him save thousands of lives through sheer strategic genius, negotiate with enemies using logic so pure it bordered on mathematics. But she also watched him stand unmoved as clone troopers he'd served with for years were cut down, calculating acceptable losses with the same ease he calculated hyperspace jumps. The Chancellor's office glowed with Coruscant's setting sun, casting long shadows across the room where two minds danced around dangerous ideas. "You know, Anakin, the Jedi speak of balance, but they practice extremism. No emotion, no attachment, no power. Don't you find it curious that an order dedicated to peace has generals leading armies?" "I've considered this paradox, Chancellor. The Jedi Code was written for peacetime. War demands adaptation." "Precisely. But adaptation requires evolution, does it not? And what evolves beyond the Jedi?" "I don't follow, Chancellor." "Don't you? You've read the ancient texts. I know you have. The restricted holocrons, the histories of the Council would rather forget. The Jedi, who came before, understood that Force mastery required studying all aspects, not just the light. Their conversation grew deeper, more dangerous. Where another Anakin might have been seduced by promises to save his beloved, this one was corrupted by something far more insidious: logic. Pure, cold, merciless logic. Padmé's senatorial office overlooked the glittering expanse of Coruscant's night sky. She stood with Anakin, reviewing the latest emergency powers legislation. They had worked together throughout the war, she as senator, he as general, developing a professional respect that never deepened into anything more. Their conversations had grown increasingly philosophical and increasingly troubling. The Senate voted to extend the War Powers Act. Good. Centralized command is more efficient. That's not the point, Anakin. We're sacrificing freedom for security. A living slave is freer than a dead senator, don't you agree? I was a slave once, Senator. I understand freedom's value, but I also understand that chaos breeds suffering. Order prevents it. At what cost? Any cost is acceptable if the equation balances. A million die to save a billion. A government falls to prevent a galaxy's collapse. These aren't difficult calculations. You sound like a droid, Anakin. Droids are logical. Humans are complicated. I've found it simpler to be logical. Everything changed when Ahsoka was framed for the temple bombing. Anakin investigated with his typical thoroughness, uncovered the truth with his usual brilliance, but when the council cast her out, he didn't fight for her. He presented the evidence, he stated the facts. He watched as his Padawan was expelled, and his expression never changed. After Barriss Offee's exposure and the council's reversal, Ahsoka stood before her former master one last time. How could you? How could you just stand there? I presented your case optimally. The council made their decision based on available data. When new data emerged, they reversed it. The system functioned as designed. The system failed me. You failed me. Failure implies I could have changed the outcome. The council's minds were decided. Emotional appeals would have been inefficient. She left that day, and Anakin watched her go with the same detachment he'd shown when she arrived. But that night, alone in his quarters, he stood before the window for hours, calculating and recalculating. Not feeling. He'd forgotten how to do that, but processing the first true failure of his logic. In Palpatine's private study, surrounded by artifacts that should have screamed danger to any Jedi, the truth finally emerged. Not with drama, but with the slow unveiling of historical perspective. The Jedi tell you that the Sith deal in absolutes, but observe their own absolute. The dark side is evil, always, without exception. They've built an entire philosophy on denial, suppression, the absolute rejection of half of the Force itself. You're saying the Sith are balance? I'm saying that dividing the Force into light and dark is like dividing mathematics into addition and subtraction. You need both to solve complex equations. The Jedi understood this. The Jedi forgot it. The Sith, we remember. You orchestrated this war. I revealed the Republic's weakness. I demonstrated the Jedi's hypocrisy. Every battle, every death, they chose their responses. I merely provided the problems to solve. You killed them to prove a point. No, my boy, they killed themselves to avoid admitting it. When Mace Windu arrived with his strike team, Anakin was already there, standing beside Palpatine's desk like a chess piece that had calculated 30 moves ahead. You knew. I suspected. I investigated. I confirmed. I also calculated the probability of this response. 93% chance of attempted assassination disguised as arrest. He's a Sith Lord! He's the democratically elected leader of the Republic. You're staging a coup. Anakin, listen to me! Master Windu, I've run every scenario. If you kill him, the Senate will turn against the Jedi, the Order will be outlawed, the war will continue under military dictatorship, yours or someone else's. If you arrest him, he'll reveal the Jedi's war crimes, the mind tricks used on senators, the kidnapping of Force-sensitive children. The Order dies either way. You've fallen to the dark side! I've risen above your simplistic morality. There is no dark side, Master Windu, no light side. There is only the Force, and those with the will to use it effectively. The battle was brief, calculated, precise. When Windu fell from that window, Anakin watched with no more feeling than an engineer observing a stress test's inevitable conclusion. Order 66 was executed with perfect efficiency. Anakin led the 501st Legion into the Jedi Temple not as Darth Vader, consumed by rage and pain, but as General Skywalker, completing a military objective. He walked through those familiar halls with the same measured pace he'd always used. When he found the younglings in the council chamber, they looked at him with such hope. Master Skywalker, there are too many of them. What are we going to do? You're going to become one with the Force. It won't hurt. I'll make it quick. And he did. Not from mercy. Mercy required emotion, but from efficiency. The confrontation on Mustafar came after Padmé's desperate attempt to stop what she saw emerging. Not a broken heart seeking revenge, but something far more terrifying. She had come as a senator trying to prevent a tyrant's rise, bringing Obi-Wan hidden aboard her ship, knowing that only Anakin's former master might reach him. On the landing platform, while volcanic ash fell like snow, she made her final appeal. The Jedi were guardians of peace. The Jedi were a fraction of the galaxy's population. Their elimination prevents centuries of future conflicts. Every child I killed saves millions who would have died in wars they'd have prolonged. You're insane! I'm rational. You're emotional. That's why democracy fails, Senator. Emotions cloud judgment. Fear leads to poor decisions. Hope breeds dangerous decisions. The empire I'm building will run on logic, on efficiency, on calculated decisions made by those capable of making them. That's tyranny! That's mathematics. When Obi-Wan emerged from the ship, Anakin showed no surprise. Hello, Master. Probability suggested you'd track her here. Your emotional attachment to us both made it inevitable. Anakin, what have you done? What needed doing? What you lacked the clarity to do. I've solved the galaxy's equation, Obi-Wan. No more war between Jedi and Sith. No more Republic corruption. No more chaos. Just order. Pure, perfect order. Their duel was philosophy made manifest. You were supposed to bring balance to the Force. I am, by removing the false division between light and dark, by ending the eternal conflict, by creating singular order from binary chaos. That's not balance, that's domination. The two are synonymous. A balanced equation has one solution. A balanced government has one voice. A balanced force has one master. Their blades locked over the river of fire. I loved you, Anakin. I know, that's why you'll lose. But emotion, for all its chaos, carries a power that logic cannot always calculate. When Obi-Wan found his opening, it came not from superior technique, but from the desperate strength that grief provides. As Anakin lay burning on that black sand, his limbs severed, his body failing, he didn't scream, he didn't rage, he simply calculated. Survival probability, 17%. Recovery probability if Palpatine arrived within 6 minutes, 43%. Probability of eventual victory despite this setback, 68%. Acceptable odds. You were my brother, Anakin. I loved you. Your love was always your weakness, Master. When Palpatine found him, rebuilt him, encased him in that black armor, Anakin Skywalker felt no different. The suit was simply a new set of parameters to optimize. Lord Vader, rise. And he did rise. Not from anger, not from hate, but from the same cold purpose that had driven him all along. The Empire spread across the galaxy with mechanical precision. The Death Star was built. Alderaan was destroyed, not from cruelty, but from calculation. Rebellion probability decreased by 31%. Acceptable losses. Years would pass. Through a twist of fate that even Vader's calculations couldn't predict, Padmé had given birth to twins before her death. Not from a broken heart, but from injuries sustained during the Empire's violent formation. The children were hidden, their parentage a Senate secret from a brief liaison years before the war, when democracy still functioned and hope still lived. Luke and Leia Skywalker would grow strong in the Force, carrying the emotions their father had abandoned. When Vader would eventually face Luke, he would feel no pull of blood, no call of family, only recognition of power that could be useful. Join me. Together, we can bring order to the galaxy. But Luke, raised with love, trained with hope, would become the variable that no equation could calculate. For in the end, the galaxy didn't need perfect order. It needed the beautiful chaos of choice, the dangerous freedom of feeling, the inefficient glory of love. In his final moments, as Force lightning coursed through his circuits and his son lay dying before him, Darth Vader would experience something his perfect logic couldn't process. Doubt. Not emotional doubt, but mathematical. A sudden recognition that his equation had been wrong from the beginning. But that future remained unwritten. For now, in this moment, on a Star Destroyer's bridge overlooking a galaxy in chains, Darth Vader stood and calculated. Always calculated. The perfect machine born from a boy who learned too young that feeling hurt too much to bear. The galaxy spun on, ordered and efficient and cold as the space between the stars. A galaxy without love is simply a very organized grave. If you enjoyed this journey into the shadows of what might have been, remember to hit that subscribe button and join us for more explorations of the infinite possibilities within that galaxy far, far away. May the Force be with you, always.